Hey guys, in this video we're going to be covering the topic of mitosis. And the key thing of mitosis to remember is that it's the splitting of the nucleus. It's not the splitting of the cell, it's the splitting of the DNA and the nucleus. At the end, you have one cell with two nuclei. All right. So mitosis has four phases that we call PMAT: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So we can see them here: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. So let's kind of walk through each one of them together. All right, so here we can see prophase taking place, and a couple things are happening. The first thing that you see happening is that your nuclear envelope is now gone. These things called the centrioles start to move to opposite ends, which we call the poles. Your chromatin is going to turn into chromosomes, and your spindle fibers are going to start to grow from the centrioles. Now, quick note, animal cells have centrioles, plant cells do not have centrioles. However, both have spindle fibers. All right, so that's a little distinction between them there. All right, so how are we going to remember all these things that are going on? All right, well, let's kind of think about what's happening, right? Our chromatin, which kind of looks like this, right? Chromatin looks like spaghetti of the cell for the DNA. It's turning into this. It's turning into a chromosome, okay? So how are we going to remember that? What we're going to do is we're going to say prophase makes an X, like this with your hands, okay? So this X represents the chromosomes that are forming. Chromatin is turning into chromosomes. So this is prophase. All right, so let's move on. All right, so metaphase, I like to say meta-middle. Meta-middle. And what's happening is that the chromosomes are lining up and moving to the middle of the cell. Sometimes it's called the equator, but they're moving to the middle of the cell. We can see the centrioles are at the poles. The spindle fibers grow and they attach to each chromosome at the centriole. All right, so what's actually going on here? All right, so let's take a look with our models. The chromosomes move to the middle of the cell. Okay, so there's our chromosomes in the middle of the cell. And when they're in the middle of the cell, the centrioles grow, and the centrioles, like my fingers here representing, attach to the center of each one at the centromere. Okay, so that's what's actually taking place. The way we're going to remember this with our hands, all right, so remember prophase, and we're going to say metaphase, meta-middle. The spindle fibers are your fingers, and they're attaching in the middle to the chromosomes, okay, at the centromeres. All right, next one, anaphase. I like to say ana apart. Ana apart. And what's actually happening in anaphase is that we have the pulling apart of the sister chromatids. Okay, so spindle fibers shorten, and we have the pulling apart of the sister chromatids. All right, so let's go through what that looks like. Okay, so here we have our chromosomes, so they've met in the middle. And now for anaphase, what we're going to see is that they actually get pulled apart. Now we have our DNA over here for this cell, and a full set of DNA over here for this cell. Okay, so each cell is going to have a full set of DNA now. Okay, so ana apart. The spindle fibers shorten and pull apart sister chromatids. The way to remember this, remember we have prophase, we have metaphase, spindle fibers are your fingers, and then we say ana apart. The spindle fibers shorten and pull apart the sister chromatids. Our final phase is going to be telophase. Okay, so in telophase, I like to say tela-2, because what we end up with is two nuclei. The nuclei reform around each of these sets of DNA. Your chromosomes are going to then turn back into chromatin, and your spindle fibers kind of break apart. All right, so how are we going to remember all this? Let's go through it. So we have prophase, metaphase, meta-middle, anaphase, ana apart, and then we say telophase. Our fists, we have two fists, each one represents a nuclei. So at this point, we have one cell with two nuclei, okay? So that is mitosis. Remember, mitosis is only the splitting of the nucleus, okay? The next thing that would happen is a separate step called cytokinesis. Now, cytokinesis actually does take place at the same time as mitosis. So if we take a look here, guys, here's cytokinesis. It's the splitting of the cytoplasm. And it actually does take place during the end of mitosis. And you'll kind of see the cell kind of expanding and getting ready and pinching off, okay? If you have any confusion about this, if you're still not sure about these steps, make sure you rewatch this video and go through this concept several times.